What happens when you purify your body, your mind, your spirit? Something miraculous. The body begins to heal itself. Welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast, where each week we explore new ways to heal your body from the root, igniting your inner healer. You are the medicine. And now, here's your host, Robin Stebbins.
Thank you for that introduction. Welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast. It's me, your host, Robin Stebbins. And today I am here with Crow, who of the Crow podcast, Crow 777. Highly recommend it, but do it when you have lots of time because it's hard to stop listening once you get started. And you have a lot of podcasts. So welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast. And just before the show, we were kind of chatting about how they don't want to cure diseases, but you mentioned you think it's a depopulation agenda, and specifically about women.
Well, that's where it starts. Women replace us all, right? Without women making new lives, we don't have them. But places like Japan, I don't know, another 20 years, we might not even have a Japan that we recognize. But Rose actually sent me an email to tell folks a couple things. Do you mind if I cover it real quick?
I would love that.
All right. So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Rose just pinged me, and she wants to make everyone aware that there's a Fortune St. Germain playlist on crow777radio.com. There's a medical playlist, and we just covered Masterpiece. I don't know if you know about that, but it's like a zeolite product, and they found that people had reduced their heavy metals in their bodies over something like 30 days, taking it, I think, twice a day. We just covered it, and people are snapping it up. I've been using it. But anyhow, I don't want to steal the show here. I just wanted to mention those things because Rose had emailed me.
And is that zeolite product, is it zeolite? Or is it something different?
It's not like the zeolite you're used to, and I know a lot of people have been having problems with typical zeolite. It's not the powder. It's a liquid. And there's a whole study and a development backstory that you can look at. And I don't know if I'll call the studies clinical because I don't know if they were truly clinical, but you can see the studies where people have reduced their heavy metals by 80%. The reason I mentioned this, my wife had not been feeling good, and we did those home tests.
Yeah.
She had every heavy metal on the list max. And so that's when I started shifting over to figure out how to get rid of the heavy metals. And the zeolite seems to be doing a really good job.
So then you test afterwards and the metal load is significantly less?
That's the idea. I haven't done that yet. And I think on my podcast, we're about to cover a doctor who I think actually does the testing. It's not always easy to find. Well, you probably have hookups because you're in the medical industry. But people had some trouble going online and finding testing to be mailed home without a doctor involved.
Right. Yeah, I wonder too. I do these 30-day cleanses, and one of the things that I'm really careful about is not killing parasites in the body, because I know people in the truth community tend to like to napalm parasites, whether it's with wormwood or ivermectin. And it's really dangerous because a lot of times the heavy metals are inside the parasites. There's a lot of parasites that are really beneficial, but if you kill the parasites, napalm them inside of you, then they can release the heavy metals all at once.
I'd never even really considered that. That's a hell of a thought there for people to think about. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is we interview a certain doctor, and a member of his family who's also a doctor wasn't feeling well. Turns out she had a 1-foot tapeworm in her. But
yeah,
that comes out of you more readily than some of the other ones.
And so then we look at all of the research that I've done, and I know it's hard matrix research. But what I have been able to uncover about parasites is that they will not attach to a healthy host. So if you have 1-foot long tapeworms and you have an overgrowth of parasites, then you have created an environment that has allowed them to proliferate. So
Oh, wow.
the goal is to be an inhospitable host. You know, the best, absolute best remedy is fasting 5, 7, 10 days. They'll just leave. And they'll leave with all of the heavy metals that they haven't ingested and the decaying material in your body. They won't die inside of you. So they get all of that material out. They go looking for a better host. They don't realize, you know.
How do they come out? Do they use the number 2 door? Is that how it's done? Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Because they think they're going to find another host. They don't realize we have sewer systems and toilets.
Well, they're going to find something. They might not like it, though.
Right. they'll find a way. But I mean, that's mostly, you know, just for me, it's not interfering with the synergistic qualities of the human body. If you have parasites, there's a reason you have parasites. So address that. Don't just kill the parasites.
Yeah, I'd never even considered that, and I'd never heard that if you're perfectly healthy, then parasites won't touch you. I wasn't aware of that either. Yeah.
Yep, you don't have anything they can eat. They want decaying matter. They want lots of metals. They want frankenfoods. So, points to ponder when they trick us into poisoning ourselves so that we are... I haven't known the pharmaceutical companies to want to kill their customers. Well, soft kill. But
well, what do you call 2020? You know, if I'm going to be blunt about it, that you call it any kind of a kill you want. But I know personally 15 people who are dead now who took the shot. Every one of them got a clot, a stroke, or a heart issue. Every one of them. The one that I heard about last was my best friend growing up. Of the gang of kids that I grew up with, he was the most healthy out of all of us. If you asked any of us who would live the longest, they would have pointed to him. And he dropped dead of a heart attack after, I think, minimally a series of 2 in his place of work.
Yeah.
And so how do we start to balance anything but the idea of population reduction when we look at what happened in 2020?
That's the question that's on my mind. Because I saw it personally as a home health nurse and I'm a hospice nurse. So I got to see, you know, the cause effect pretty obviously with the blood clots and all the different, even when I would do blood draws on patients, the blood would actually clot in the tubing before it could even go into the lab.
Do you remember the magnet, like when people started first lining up and they were sticking magnets to their arm?
And forks and spoons.
It's like, what do you think? I mean, gosh, I just don't get how people still trust authority in this day and age, or anybody for that matter. Even people that we respect, you've got to question things now because it's like you said, we're living in an upside down world where black is white and white is black, according to the mainstream authority.
And what I want, I mean, and what this show is really aimed at is for those that took the red Kool-Aid, the jabs, they have a nice refreshing glass of blue Kool-Aid for those that wouldn't take the red. So they've got your ivermectin, your hydroxychloroquine, chlorine dioxide, all of these ones that are supposedly for the freedom community to stay in health and wellness, or vitamin D3 is rat poison, is decon. Vitamin C, vitamin B, all the B complexes, they're a pharmaceutical. They were invented and made by the pharmaceutical companies, and they are a collection of chemicals that is meant to slowly deteriorate your health. Because that's what I think the pharmaceuticals game is. They don't put anything in a pill, capsule, or inhalant that doesn't create downstream customers. Because what did they make in 2020? 50 billion, but they made 500 billion on the net illnesses. And I don't know if it was the depopulation agenda or if they were experimenting with next level. Because the adults haven't been on schedule like that in such a long time. But look at what happens to babies when they're receiving their well visits. They die. They call it sudden infant death syndrome. Yeah. SIDS.
SID, that's it.
Well, now we have adult sudden death syndrome. Sudden adult death syndrome, SADS, yeah.
So check this out. I was talking with Fortune de Saint Germain, and I had interviewed a guy who does sidereal astrology, and months before the stockpile for the shots came in, he predicted to the day, it was December 14, what happened. We were talking about that. And I mentioned that they were reporting how many millions of doses had been dropped in my area. And we began to talk, and we did a quick calculation, and we estimate that minimally they had to be making that for 10 years to do the amount. And remember how it was all freeze-dried or frozen?
Right.
You know, so they had been making it for, we calculate, something over a decade. And so what do you call that? First of all, we've got an industry here that never cures anything. I interviewed a couple doctors early on, and they said there's no pharmaceutical that's ever cured anyone of anything. And I said, wait a minute, that can't be right. And so I said, what about, you know, antibiotics? And they said, well, antibiotics will cure a infection, but it's also nuking the whole deal. So
it doesn't cure the infection either, though.
Well, there you go. So what they're saying is basically true. So the other thing is they don't try. They announce that we aim at symptoms. So if the symptoms are your body's red flag telling you something's wrong here, and they're masking the red flag, then what is their intent in the first place?
Well, keep in mind the symptoms are the body's mechanism of healing. Even if it's low thyroid, your body is using that to heal itself. It's seeking to get back into that harmony. And so we want to interfere with it, raise the thyroid hormone, or whatever the Band-Aid is. You have high blood pressure, which I think that's a whole big scam, taking people's blood pressure all the time. And you just lower the numbers. That's what they want. They want a pill that changes a lab value, or it changes a value that they can measure and to tell you that it's working. Otherwise, you wouldn't be tricked into taking it because your health is slowly getting worse. But they're telling you, look, it's working because we can show you on a lab. The lab value changed. Meanwhile, your hair is falling out, you can't get an erection, and your stomach's bloated and you've gained 25 pounds. But no, it's working.
There's another, birth control mechanism. How many people do you suppose are on blood pressure? My VA doctor, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I think it was 10 years later, they tried to put me on it. I took it for a very short time before I caught on, and I quit taking it. But I remember asking, what are the side effects? And she said, well, it might affect your sex life.
Yeah.
Right? And so there it is right there. They're reducing offspring through one of the most common drugs there is.
That's it right there. And it's casting spells, because first they have to, at birth, separate you from your intuition, from the understanding that you have of the world around you. I think babies are born brilliant, but they have to separate you from your intuition so that they can put a higher power above you, the false god of the doctors and the scientists and the people on TV, the movie stars. And then the doctors then, because you see them as your false god, the gods are telling you you have this disease, this illness, and you believe it. It's the belief that they're after. They want to get you to believe high blood pressure could kill you. They want you to believe that there's no cure for Parkinson's. You're going to have to be on these drugs for the rest of your life. They want you to believe that, and most people do, because they put that person above them. And then back to the vaccines, and I have to delete all those V words. Back to the jabs, they have known from the beginning that they don't do anything. They poison people with DDT. That's how they had the symptoms of polio. And then they know they're injecting them. So what are they injecting them with? What drug? I don't think it's the same across the board either when it says the polio vaccine. I think they were experimenting. And then the way they eradicated polio in this country is they told every single physician, if you diagnose anyone with polio, you'll lose your medical license. So that's how they cured it. They just wouldn't let anyone diagnose those symptoms as polio. It was now muscular dystrophy or multiple sclerosis or something to that nature. So they've been experimenting with these little vials of God knows what from the beginning of time.
I mean, you're speaking my language now. The moment you began to speak, it reminded me of that old song. What is it? Lightning Crashes. Are you familiar with the song? Here,
live, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm actually going to kick that into the chat because the moment you began to speak, you were echoing the foundational ideas of the lyric in that song. We did a whole episode. You are speaking my language. It is a spell. It is a separation from reality. It is an open acknowledgement that all truth exists in nature, and we're going to separate you from it. And over time, you're going to believe in more nonsense than a 6-year-old on his own would ever believe in.
Amen to that. That's exactly what they do. Because we come in knowing, we come in remembering. And so they have to get you in utero. They have to tell your mother that she has to go into the medical system to tell her if her baby's okay. She can't trust her body. She can't trust her body's signals and her body's wisdom. So get radiation on your unborn child through the ultrasound. It's not an ultrasound, it's radiation. And get your flu shots. That goes, all those injections are swirling around.
How do you make a mom not a mom, right? Basically, that's what you're describing.
So now you'll be able to put your baby in harm's way. They've separated that bond between the mother and child, so that when they came around with this latest noodle, so told parents, well, you have to inject your kids to go to public school, they just threw them to the wolves.
And the homogenization that will follow, removing all individuality, because each of us, as you say, comes into this world with gifts and a knowing, and that is wrung out of you. And while little Johnny may be really good with numbers, little Susan may be really good at building things. There's all this individuality, and what they do is they just homogenize the crap out of everybody. And I'll say it on the record for the 1 millionth time, memorizing and regurgitation is not learning, and that is 90% of the nonsense. But the moment you opened up, that song just started going through my. Look at the first things: lightning crashes, a new mother cries. Yeah. Her placenta falls to the floor. The angel opens her eyes, and here's the key line: the confusion sets in before the doctor can even close the damn door. It's true.
That's so true. That gives me chills too, because that's exactly what they do. And to your point, I believed IQ, intelligent quotient, was not intelligent quotient. It was indoctrination quotient. So they know who the goats are of the population that were going to lead the sheep.
Good point. So
they have to tell the sheep, you're stupid. Those of us that could tell, like, hey, something's up here. And in school, I wouldn't pay attention because I said, this is nonsense. This is baloney, and this is never going to advance me in my life. So I'm not going to pay any attention. I'll get the bare minimum to pass, and then that's it. But indoctrination quotient. So they know who they can tell are clever, good at memorizing and regurgitating information in the way that they want you to regurgitate that information, not to think for yourself, but so that when 2020 came, look at all of the high IQ and all of the doctors and attorneys and everyone else that supposedly is the best and brightest fell for it. And
most boondoggled of everybody.
And we couldn't figure out, like, how can you not see this? And then I realized it's because they're so indoctrinated from the beginning. And when you look at an actual medical doctor, and I'm going to include the naturopaths and the homeopaths and the functional medicine doctors that just want a symptom pill, whether it's a pharmaceutical or a vitamin, but they are indoctrinated into Rockefeller medicine. And so you have to know that you're still in that indoctrination. You're still a goat. that's even more indoctrinated than the rest of us that went through and were told that we're stupid in school, or, however they try to get you to feel shame and not trust the inner guidance of your soul's wisdom.
Well, I think you used the correct language earlier when you used the word spell, because there's some of that going on too. And the idea that they are so invested, like a doctor, like you say, monetarily wiped out just from the workload and the amount of time and effort they put in. But let's be honest here. As a man in America, I think when I hit 50, I began to evaluate, like, what have I done with my life? So let's say I was a doctor, all right, and I make 60, and I did a simple thing like, what does a doctor do? Well, it cures, helps people, heals people, right? So I looked at all the people I had healed, and that would be a rude awakening day for me if I was a doctor and had done that, because I would be forced to recognize that I may have been fortunate to heal a couple, but generally what I did was push drugs.
Well, and you cast spells on people, and how many times have we heard that they will say, "Oh, Mr. Smith, you have cancer, you have 6 months to live," and that guy dies in 6 months, and they realize they had the wrong chart,
but the right spell to make sure that he dies in 6 months.
He had the right spell, and you have to have, though, that consensual agreement. I agree, you're above me. And that's where we went wrong to start with. You have to tell that child you need a translator. You need a translator between you and the divine, you and nature, you and God, you and outer space, you and your body. And that translator is smarter than you. You're not going to be able to figure this out. So you have to rely on your translator to tell you all these things. Then they get in and they control the goats. So the goats can then lead us, the sheep.
You know, I got out of the Marine Corps, the first Gulf War, and I became a roadie that, tours and sets up stage and stuff with rock bands. Yeah. Well, a third of my year, we would go to the convention centers and we would set up stages and stuff for like optometrists or anything else. Well, one year, the oil companies came in. And so I got assigned to a room with the oil companies for a week to run all the projectors and everything in there, because the rock and roll season was off and the theater season was off. I got there and I realized I couldn't understand what they were talking about. On the second day, I began to decipher their language. On the third day, I began to realize what they were talking about. And on the fourth day, I had cracked their special little words, their little language for the gas company. And basically what they had come there to say is, every time we drill, we pollute the earth with an actionable offense that we can be forced to clean up. This is how we do it, and not take responsibility. That's what the whole thing was about. And any person who just walked in off the street and listened would not, it took me 3 days to decipher it. And then on the fourth day to be able to listen and comprehend what was actually being communicated. It was so strange, because the images are showing the drilling and the oil leaking into the groundwater. And yet to listen, it sounds like they're concerned with how do we prevent this, when in fact, what they're saying is this happens every single time.
Yeah. And when you were talking, I just got this same image of what they do inside our bodies, and dentists drilling your teeth and your root canals, and all of that is unnecessary. It's because we are using detergents in our mouth and alcohol in our mouth and mouthwashes. That's the reason it starts to deteriorate our mouth biome. It's the same thing. And then it's, eradicated your wisdom. I don't know if you've read anything about the reason we have wisdom teeth, and the reason that
I want to hear
they want to extract them is that you have centers that connect with each part of your mouth, and the wisdom teeth connect to the pineal gland and the heart. So you wouldn't be able to eat synthetic foods. You wouldn't be able to eat garbage. You wouldn't be able to speak garbage, because you have that centers, as long as your pineal gland isn't calcified and your heart and everything is working synergistically. That's why they want to calcify the body with all these different drugs. And glyphosates are the number one way they calcify the pineal gland. Vitamin D3 is the second way. But if it's all online, the second you would eat something that's like margarine, or you wouldn't be able to swallow it, you'd have to spit it out.
Can you imagine how many things we have become used to letting them cut off our body? Like here, these tonsils weren't using them. What's an appendix good for? Foreskin, never needed one of those.
Yep.
Just if you went through to see the normalization of what they have convinced us is perfectly okay to remove from your body, as if God somehow forgot what a body needs. But what's worse is that intention that paved the road for them to get us to the point where we don't even blink when they want to cut something out of us has now shifted to implanting things into the human body, like meshes. When I had a hernia, there wasn't a doctor in the house that knew how to sew up a hernia. They said, you got to get the mesh. And so now this transhumanism agenda is coming forward, and you see the people who might have like an insulin problem, and they want to put that little robot pack on their arm that's like on them or in them all the time. So that's the movement, and they will attempt to normalize the, I don't know what you call it, modification of the human body in this way, in the same way they got us to be perfectly okay with cutting parts off and flushing it down the toilet.
Exactly right. And all of that, when you're talking about the synergy, what we're talking about is the synergistic effects that you and I could spend the rest of our lives trying to figure out just one piece of how the body works. We'll never be able to, because it's infinite numbers of reactions. Even if I just eat a slice of lemon that came right from the tree, it's got the sunlight on it, the moonlight, the water that came up into a vortex through the branches, the way the water goes into the lemon, the developing lemon, what insects landed on it, the sound of the vibration of the bee buzzing and pollinating the flower before it becomes a lemon, and then biting it into my chemistry, my synergy. I look at it, I smell it, I taste it, and all the different reactions that are going on within me.
Which could be polar opposite to another individual.
And so that's why they want to separate you from your intuition. I know what I need to fuel my body because my pineal gland's online, my heart is online, I'm working synergistically. I don't use detergents on my skin or in my hair or in my mouth anymore. So it's all online. My intuition is fire now. So I'll know what needs my body has nutritionally. I'll know what I need medicine-wise, and I'll know what to stay away from. But that's why they want to separate us, because we can be sick, weak, and dependent, and trust them to say, oh, you're having this set of symptoms? Here's the drugs that you need to take for that.
That never cured anything of anybody.
Ever. And they don't want to. Right. They want to soft kill you.
Or better yet, have you kill yourself. That's their favorite plan.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't think I've used any like underarm deodorant or anything like that in 30 some years now, I think.
There you go.
But I still know people that I grew up with who they put that stuff under their arms every day. Now there's all this marketing campaign for this crap that you can spray on your genitals as a deodorant, of all things. So, I mean, it just gets worse and worse what we are convinced to put in and on ourselves, when the actual truth is, the actual factual truth is that all truth resides in nature. If it cannot be proven by nature, then it is not true. Anything that is synthetic is a pale shadow, a simile, a metaphor, a weak attempt at replicating what nature had already provided, but it couldn't be metered or charged or taxed. And so when we come back to the reality and bring your pineal online and bring common sense into your life, that one simple statement, all truth resides and is proven in nature, will keep you on the straight and narrow if you employ it. Right. Next time you're holding a can of whatever the hell that you don't even really know. I mean, you can read the ingredients, you still don't really know what's in there.
No, and we never will.
No.
Because are you kidding? They're really going to tell us what they're putting in these things. No, they will not put anything on a shelf in a big box store that doesn't create addiction. I mean, they came out with the Bliss Point, and so that's the combination of sugar and fats and salt that create that addictive response in the body. And then they tell us, what vitamins are. I think we all have this idea that they take, a food source like vitamin B1 is bran, and so they extract like the magic ingredients out of it, concentrate it, and put it in a pill. No, they make it out of chemicals like ammonia and coal tar and hydrochloric acid. That's what's in your vitamins. So you can never hack Mother Nature. Nature gives us the blueprint. That's what I always used to say. So we're kind of saying the same thing. Nature gives you the blueprint, and you cannot hack it. You can't make it better. You can't
it's perfect.
It's perfect. It's perfect in its synergy.
With
and you
a
don't
million
even have
years
to
of
understand
perfection.
it.
Right. Yep. I'm with you. You're saying exactly what I'm saying. And this is the benchmark that we are slowly separated from, because when we go out into the world and we say, oh, I wish I could find truth in this world or sanity. Well, you're surrounded by it every day. Go walk into a field. You are surrounded by truth. If you learn something from a tree or a bird or a squirrel, you can bank it because it is a fact. And this is where we go wrong, because we were convinced somewhere along the line that scientists are so smart they can outdo the creator of this place. And that is in fact not true. And not only is it not true, how many hundreds of millions of years do some of these things that we have access to, have they been developing? Like an orange or, a peanut, who knows, and that's perfection.
That's perfection. And I look at, on this side of the fence, whatever you want to call this side, truthers or freedom community, I don't ascribe to any of them, but then you've got the biohacking community, and they want to biohack Mother Nature. So you've got your red light therapy. You cannot substitute going out and looking at a sunrise and having the sun directly in your retina with some red lights. I mean, when the sun hits the lens of your eyes, it communicates with your skin cells how much to open and close depending on the sunlight. And since I started sun gazing, I haven't needed glasses.
Good for you. How long have you been doing it?
Oh, probably 10 years.
So I'm going to ask you the questions I asked David Weiss. Did you have an astigmatism or near or farsightedness? Did it get corrected?
Yes.
Okay, there it is. I mean, what more do you really
need? Glasses to drive. I was starting to need, I'm 55, I was starting to need use reading glasses. My vision's perfect. Probably better than when I was 20.
Do you still keep up on it?
Yeah. See, here's the interesting thing, Crow. I grew up on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, Nevada. So all of this stuff that we're learning about, I just did naturally because I was a wild human. We had our own milk cow. We drank raw milk. We had a huge vegetable garden that my mom would can every late fall. And we had all sorts of wild asparagus and all these other things. So I went out and I would watch the sunrise every single morning in Nevada, and I would watch every single sunset that I possibly could.
Plus, you're what they like to call Gen X,
Right.
So we were resilient anyhow. I'm on the cusp. I'm 60. So I completely get the end of the boomers, but I actually kind of grew up as the oldest of the Generation X, and it's a different world. We took care of ourselves. And what you're saying is true. We went outside every day where truth resides, and we did stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny you brought up the sun. I don't know if you know it or not, but I have a film out. It's a 2-hour film called Shoot the Moon, which covered all my 6 years of filming the moon and everything, which is at crow777radio.com for members. Well, now I have a really big, sophisticated solar telescope, and I'm searching for the sun we don't see. There's another body there that I call the second sun. Now, at the end of the film, Shoot the Moon, is the first time I discovered it, and I think I say 2016, but I found the files. I think it's actually 2014 and 15 when I first spotted the sun we don't see in hydrogen alpha. So I just spotted it again on D-Day, 6/6/24. The sun we don't see was spotted again, and I have footage up, which is only available to my membership. I don't use social media anymore because I'm tired of their nonsense.
Right.
But it's funny you should bring that up, because to me, the sun is the biggest deal there is. It is the light of this world. It is the basis for all life. It is all these things. And in the same way Rockefeller medicine tries to homogenize and cast spells on us, our religion has done the same thing by coming up with ideas like, how dare you worship the sun, you pagan pig.
Right.
It's the same idea in reverse. And if you're going to be honest, you're going to recognize what the sun actually is in this little 3D game we got going on here. Without it, there is no life.
Agree. And that's how we get our energy. That's everything.
But I've got astonishing footage through a very large hydrogen alpha telescope. Do you have an account for crow777radio.com?
Not yet.
Well, you need to email me as soon as we're off here, or send it to Rose, and I'll get you account log in so you can stream Shoot the Moon anytime you want, or click on the video link and look at, I think I have five solar videos up so far, but the last one has a screenshot of us locating the sun you don't see on 6/6/24. So you'll have to go check that stuff out for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely check that out. And that's what was the first podcast I did with Dave Weiss. Was I told him this is how I started to put together a playbook of how they trick us and manipulate us. But when I was 3 years old, I distinctly remember telling my parents, like, this was the ground. This is the ground level. And then what we could see above us were the stars. I was trying to explain that to them. And they told me that I was wrong. And, you know, of course, they explained the globe. And I felt that I could take a split between what I really knew to be true to fit in with my tribe, my adopted parents, or I could maintain like this truth inside of myself. Go along to get along. I don't need to talk about it, but I know what I know to be true. And I think that is that moment, those moments, there's probably thousands of them, as for 0 to 7, that you splinter off. You look at MK Ultra programming, they splinter the psyche. They lie to you in such blatant ways that you have to splinter off to be a member of society, to function and to believe these massive lies that they keep pumping you filled with. And then at 6 or 7, you get into the public school system, and then it's one more massive lie after another. So it's splinter off, splinter off, splinter off. So that now, yes, you're not in that realm of reality. You're separated from nature. So all of these things, then you can convince a person, hey, yeah, the sun is 93 million miles away and we landed on the moon and
it's a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
And more nonsense. So were you adopted?
I was adopted.
So was I.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I ended up meeting my birth mom when I was 30.
So you must be what, 1968, 67?
69.
69. That's, you're a summer of love child.
January of 69. Yeah, I was.
Yeah, yeah. And so I actually went to try to track my parents, and the state of California blocked me.
Oh.
They redacted everything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought they had to open it.
No, your parents that give you up for adoption in that state have two things they can say: whether or not they're going to be allowed to find you and contact you, and what religion you're to be raised. Mm-hmm. So the people giving you up can put those two little nuggets in your stocking.
Mm. Yeah, well,
people don't realize it's a different. It's in the same way. I was fortunate. I could not have had better parents. I can't imagine anyone of the world have being better parents. Like my father taught me how to think, taught me how to speak, taught me everything I rely on in life. But as you were saying about being splintered away from a group, it's not the same living in a family when you are not blood related to any of them.
Right.
And even though it can be fine and great and good, it's just different in a way you can't explain. And in a way, that's what coming to truth is. Because you cannot hang. Look, I once interviewed a guy that people used to love to hate, but he was right. And he said, if you go around through life repeating lies, then you are in fact a liar. I mean, do you agree that's true?
I 100% agree.
So then people said, well, wait a minute. I was told when I was 6 years old that there were dinosaurs and that the world spins faster than a 30-06 round. And so that's where they try to make the disconnect. Sorry. You're an adult human being. To come to truth is your responsibility. And if you simply want to be Polly wants a cracker parrot and just parrot back everything you've been told, the truth is you're in fact a liar. You are propagating lies, which is the enforcement of the system that we live in.
That's
like the Matrix, right? Everyone's an agent.
And it's almost worse that you're parroting the lies or you're shaming your fellow man.
Yep.
You know, with people that are questioning it, and especially all of these different things that truly matter, because their end goal, I mean, I think there's two end goals with the transhuman agenda. One, they want to erase your memory. So their favorite disease of choice is Alzheimer's or dementia, so that they can completely then milk every last dime out of you, and you have no idea who you are. That's where we're supposed to be in our golden years, passing on wisdom to the younger generation, and these people don't even know their names.
It's a hell of a reality we've shifted into here, but in my view, this is the age shift. This is the era change. I think it's going to be a difficult time for some period of time. But I imagine in 100 or maybe 200 years, we'll be in a world that is amazing at a level that we probably can't comprehend. But unfortunately, there's been a major train wreck, and the body count's still going on and will go on for some time.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions. Is I feel like this darkness and light has been going on from the beginning of time. Not that we can trust everything in the Bible, but this play of good and evil, dark and light, has been part of it. You can't have one without the other. We want heaven, but heaven ceases to be heaven the moment that you don't have the contrast.
That's right. In a 3D material reality, opposites are required. Your battery will not give you energy without a negative and a positive pole.
Right.
This is how I came to realize that what I was seeing through my telescope, even though I've been told my whole life the sun's this magical one unique thing, there is no approximation. You come to these realizations. But think about this. Of all the popular kind of things in our culture, like The Matrix or Lord of the Rings or all these things, what are we talking? It's always good and evil, isn't it? And I'm with you. I think in every age shift, there's a run that is made. And I think in our era shift, darkness just has more of a foothold maybe than it does in the last time or two, or who knows what the actual truth is. But I think that is really the gist of what's going on here. And also, and I'll be blunt about this, you're counting yourself. The bean counters are putting you into a bean hole, and you're going to decide where you go. So if you want to be on the dark side, technically you've broken no rule.
Right.
To be Darth Vader violates no natural law that I'm aware of. And you can go maybe beyond where we are now and go down that road. Who knows? You know, I'm guessing. But the point here is these choices are here for us to deal with. And the choices that you make are, in fact, going to birth your future. The movie Cloud Atlas does a very good job of, you know, orienting you to what your actions now mean? And they do it using reincarnation and a storyline, but they say over and over, your actions now are birthing your future. And we don't think that way, unfortunately. Like, we do things all day long, not thinking, you know, am I paving a road forward by doing what I'm doing here? When in fact you are. And the proof of that is throw a rock in a lake. Did you see any ripples?
Right. I agree with that. I've always said God is in the choice. And so it comes down to, you know, what do you choose? I personally like to be in the light. That's just where I feel my mission is, and I embody that. But again, like you said, the Darth Vaders, is that just, you know, the scorpion stinging the duck going across the pond?
It's his nature. That's right. But, you know, for human beings, there, you know, we can't totally equate with the scorpion because there is a line. And if you want to go around killing, there's a line there. If you want to go around doing severe things, there is a line there. And the thing about that is the idea, there's an old legal maxim, and one of the words I always remember was mala in se, the old Latin, which no one needs to tell you this is bad. It's bad on the face of it. If I asked you when you were 3 years old, is it okay to murder people? You would say, of course not. That's mala in se.
Right.
And yet we have people in this world who will go that. It's almost like, and I once heard it described, in this 3D material reality, every possibility will be worked out. And if that is true, then you better get ready to expect seeing everything. Because if every possibility will be worked out, then there's not one thing that will be undone by the time this place is done.
Well, I agree with that. And I think the cabal, the ruling class, whatever you want to call it, these cowards, they know that thoughts become things. And so that's why all these kids have headphones on their ears now, reciting the most demonic, murderous lyrics. And what are we seeing on the television, the television? That lights up your mirror neurons. Then that comes into action, so they can pre-program people, future programming of what they want to manifest. So our job is to turn off all of that. Like you said, go find the truth in nature. That's where I've always found it. That's where I've always found peace and harmony and healing for my knee, like right now, going in the ocean, burying my knee in the sand.
You know, that's kind of what's so scary about the onset of AI, because we know that it will be misused and used as a police force if they can. But we are creatures of habit. If I was going to ask everybody listening, if I went and found 100 of you tomorrow at noon, would you be in the same place you were the day before at noon? Would you be doing a similar thing? Did you get out of bed at a similar time? Did you eat a similar meal? Did you take a similar course to get where you were going? And the truth is that most of the time the answer to that is yes. And so the idea of free will plays into this, and so many people have been convinced that we don't have free will, but that is a simple thing you can prove to yourself. Go to your front door and determine. There are 5 choices at your front door, and you can make any one of them, which proves you have free will. You can go straight, you can turn right, you can turn left, you can go back, or you can stand there till you die. And that is the proof that, and I use the crossroads, the old example of the crossroads, because every time new information is put before us, your mind has been dragged to the crossroad. You have been forced to make a decision. And if you decide not to decide, that is in fact a decision.
Right.
And in fact, when malice-filled people put these things before you, many of the times they're banking on you won't do anything. And this is the world that becomes addictive for a large number of us to constantly accept nonsense. It's almost like we become addicted to nonsense because we have become strangers to nature.
Yes. And not keeping that in our sight that vision that we have of what the future could be. Instead, we're reacting to what they're giving us, what they're feeding us. So we have to react. And we have to react to the political theater that they're presenting to us, or the medical theater. It's just all a show. And I don't think there's a head of the snake to cut off. We simply starve it with lack of attention. We just stop caring about it.
Yeah, you have to make your own path. And the truth of it is, and it seems like an old cliche, but that old cheesy cliche, you know, be the change you want to be. Think about the reality of what's being said there. I don't like what I see going on in my town. Can I march up to my town hall and walk in the door and tell everybody in there, from now on, you're doing it different? No, I really can't do that. If I come to my home and I decide I don't like what's going on, what's the truth of the situation? Well, if I have children, I can probably influence them readily. If I have a wife, maybe I can influence her readily. But the truth is, the only place I have total control is myself. That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. And once you come to know this, then the importance of choosing becomes important and critical. And whether or not the world around you changes quickly is irrelevant. Though I will add, look at the biblical story of Jesus, you know, as an example. We're told of a man who shone a light that people admired and wanted to follow. Well, that should be each of us.
Right.
It's almost the reason I get up in the morning to do my podcast, because I pray that I can put together the right words that will mean something to somebody that matters, and maybe they'll choose to follow. Because I can't snap my fingers and control anyone, even my dog, for that matter.
Right.
In this world, the only place I have 100% control is myself. And sadly, in the era I live, I don't even have 100% control of myself. Because if I did, I probably wouldn't drink a cup of coffee every morning.
Well, and then there is the human factor. But to that point of, you can't control anything or snap your fingers and, you know, everyone wake up. But I had a dream in 2020, a very lucid dream, where I had met my dad, who was sitting in the stream, and I went up and I hugged him, and I pulled back because I'd never really hugged my dad in real life. And I said, "Is this you?" in the dream. And he said, "Yes, it's me, but not the person you would remember." And so when I realized I'm lucid dreaming, I said, "Oh my gosh, this is it. I'm connected with the other side." I said, "Can you help us? We're in real trouble here." And he paused for a very long time. And he said, "Yes, but you wouldn't want me to." And in that moment, I realized we have to do this ourselves. I think that statement in the Bible, the gates of heaven are narrow. You can't have this corruption, this pollution of the mind and of the spirit by choice going into the future, going into the next realm. We have to decide, and it starts only, thank God, I don't have the responsibility of trying to change the world, just within this world.
You know, it's crazy when you think about it, because if you choose to accept that when we die in this lifetime, that it just doesn't go black and we're no longer exist, I accept that the example of energy fits us. Like, you can't destroy or get rid of energy. In my view, when I die, the energy, or whatever you want to call it, will go on. But if I am right, and if that is correct, think about what a drop in the bucket this lifetime will be for me.
That's right.
And so when I began to look at it like that, I began to realize the importance of treating every day like it's a test. Don't do the wrong thing because it's easy. That's a test. And truly, if I have been alive and will be alive, then this lifetime is less than a drop in a bucket. And when all is said and done, you know, I once read this old description in a Christian mystic, one of these secret societies of the Christian mystics. And they said, do you know why children in the old Eastern religions were bar mitzvahed and bat mitzvahed at 13? And I said, no, why? And it's because they were considered an adult. But why? Here's what they said. Because the sun had traveled through each of the 12 zodiacs, irradiating that energy to that individual. So now they'd had one full sweep around with all the different energies, and they're ready to be called no longer a child. And when I read that, I thought, now that is a very interesting way to try to impart what most of us can't even consider anymore. And right now you're talking to someone who has spent endless hours behind a telescope. I'm currently doing it with the sun, and I'm here to tell you, you've never been told a true thing about space. I'm here to tell you that the space agencies are here to ensure you don't know a damn thing about what's going on over your head. And I'm also here to tell you that these keys above our head, as above, so below, were much better known by past cultures.
And I think, I mean, part of the reason that they spray the skies isn't just to poison us. I think it's to keep us from seeing.
Blocking sunlight, yeah. Lots of reasons.
And to see, I mean, I think when...
I heard Tennessee just outlawed it, by the way. I think Rhode Island has it on the bill. So we'll see if this is a charade or whether there's some reality here.
Yeah, I know. Or just to give the slaves a false sense of hope. I don't know.
Steam release, I like to call it, right? Oh, good. Someone's doing something. I can sit on my lazy boy and pick my nose.
Let me just watch the screens for further updates on
there it is.
What everybody else is going to be doing to save us. But
honey, where's the extra blue screen? No.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, what I know we have about, well, no, we don't. I'm going to have you back on the show because I have about 1,000 more questions.
I'm happy to do it, and I can go a little bit longer, just so everybody listening. I hurt my ankle, and I'm supposed to ice it every hour, but I can go a little bit more.
Okay. To get us started, what have you seen that you can just give us a little teaser for our next show up in the skies? Is it water? Is it...
Okay, I'll go through this and I'll tell you that I have a tagline that I put on my website, and it's important to me. It says, belief is the enemy of knowing. And just to get it off the table, that is not a shot at anyone's spiritual beliefs. That is not, I am very happy to know someone has a spiritual path, and I don't give a darn what path that is, because it's your life and you choose. So it's not a shot at that. But having said that, these are the things that I currently accept. By the way, if I learn something new tomorrow, I may no longer accept it. But in 2015, I stated that I think space would be better described as a liquid. I'd done as far as I could go with my telescope. I couldn't get any more that I wanted. So I came up with an idea that if I could come up with words that had been broadcast around the world to millions of minds, and they described space in a watery way, that I would do the announcement. So I chose the Rice University speech from JFK. He did the speech twice. He's talking about space, and this is what he says. We set sail on this new ocean. And, it goes on and on like that. So I announced it. I know for a fact that there is another body by the sun. I think it is probably a secondary sun or a source to our secondary sun. For people listening, in 2012, I'm the guy who accidentally first filmed the first lunar wave. If I had that to do over again, I would call it a firmament wave with what I know now. That wave has been filmed in front of Saturn and Jupiter, and it is my current point of view that the best likely answer, not being able to prove it outright, is that it's a wave in the firmament. But if you choose a direction and you lock and load, I'll go any way you want.
That's what I have believed to be true, not from researching it, from observing it with a cheap telescope that I bought way back when my son was 7, and observing these bands of light.
Do you still have the scope?
No.
So here, I'll drop one more thing to let people think. Here's another thing that I currently accept. And while I don't have as many thousands upon thousands of hours viewing the sun that I do on the moon, I think it is quite likely that the sun is actually 3,300 miles above us and the moon is at the same level. I suspect that the diameter of both is roughly 32 miles. I suspect that the stars are actually the furthest away from us. I expect that comets are actually in their own little plane and much closer to us. These are the things. And also, I accept that there is a black sun, and I accept that it is below us, and it is radiating through an aperture at the North Pole, a place that we cannot visit. And that is part of the reason the moon phases in the way we see it. There's a lot going on, and the problem that we face now is that we've accepted so many lies all of our life. When someone tries to tell you something that could be common sense, I can't prove that it's common sense, some of it I can, then we reject it. And the biggest thing that I think we need to do in this era is have a very open mind based on the fact that you know you've been lied to since you were born. And if you need a refresher, go listen to Lightning Crashes by Live. Read those lyrics, because they're telling you what happens to a new life the moment it opens its eyes. The game, the circus begins.
That's it. And I'll ask you this at our next show. I don't know if the stars are a reflection of our soul because of the numbers of stars, or what your opinion on stars are, but there's just so many things I want to ask you, but I'm going to be respectful because I want
their
you to
energy. I'll give this to you. Their energy, when you look at them through a scope, you can defocus, and what you get is a cymatic pattern, and each one is different. And the last thing I will say is I currently accept that the moon is plasma, and you couldn't put a boot on it if you wanted to.
Yep, I agree with you 100% on that, and I agree that what I really like is not worrying about what they're doing anymore. It's like, I think if we put our heads together and we're not on substance like alcohol and caffeine and nicotine or anything like that, I think we could figure out a lot of this and how it could benefit that ushering in.
I think the intention, I think the intention to want to know starts that process.
Yes.
I think when you announce to the universe that I want to know about where I am, here's a simple idea. Yes. If you don't know where you are right now, how can you possibly know where you can go?
Yeah. Exactly.
And that really is the foundation of it. But I want to thank you so much for having me on. And anyone who's interested in my work, everything I do is at crow777radio.com. That is CRROW777radio.com. If you're a member, you get free access to the movies, free access to all the solar work. Anyhow, you can go check it out if you want.
Links is below.
And I'm happy to come back. I know David had mentioned something to Rose. I just been out of commission for about a week and a half because I did literally break my ankle while I was using my scope.
Oh, man. I damaged my knee when I was kite surfing, and Dave damaged his Achilles while he's kite surfing. So at least we're doing something worthwhile.
Get Reckaweg 55. Anyhow, I gave you the lookup. You should look up and get those Reckawegs. They're the real deal.
Yep, I'm going to do that right after we end the show. And thank you so much, Crow, for being on and for lighting this up.
All right. Thanks so much for having me, and let's do it again.
Let's do it again.